a 2-year storm, and the storm has now left the building. So, memories.
Trying to dig up the ones that I've repressed.
One of the images that's up first is actually one of the first assembled corn stalks.
Oh, great.
Before they were even painted. Back when it was literally just the fresh cut leaves on the bamboo with basically the Scotch tape nodes. So in order to make those, Christina wasn't with us yet, so she doesn't know the story, but Mike was front and center for all of this. So essentially we needed fireproof corn stalks. We had searched online for a supplier or a manufacturer that could make them for us and came up with nothing because they were either not fire rated, or they couldn't do the quantity we needed, or they just had no durability. They were made like out of plastic and they would have broke like that. The bamboo was actually, people even broke the damn bamboo. As we were taking them down, there were pieces snapped in half in between others.
Yeah, I mean, they get the shit kicked out of them enough, they'll break.
But essentially, we had to build these ground up ourselves, and that was a massively tall order. We ended up, we ordered in all the bamboo and divided it amongst the locations so that, in downtime, everybody could be making corn stalks and then bring them all back together. We had family and friends. We had so many people were participating in this. I remember Sean.
Yeah, Sean brought his mom and his fiance.
Yeah. Yep. My whole family was here. Jess's family was here. My wife. Jess was here 9 months pregnant. And past due.
Well, she gave birth the day we opened.
Yeah.
April 1st.
Yep. April Fool's Day was my daughter's birthday, so yeah, it was a crazy ride. We had the corn stalks is what gets kind of the most glorified, telltales of the experience. Everybody always talks about the corn stalks because it was just such a monstrous undertaking. When we had put these together, there we go. When we put these together, we had to find fireproof paper suppliers, cut out all the leaves, which that alone was like an army of a task. Then connect them to the corn stalks, and then Mike and I were basically back to back with paint sprayers with fireproof paint.
For 3 days.
Yeah, just going to town, back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth.
That whole back room was just like a green smog, basically. You couldn't, it was just green mist everywhere. You couldn't get away from it.
Yeah, everything back there was covered in green.
My boogers were green for 2 weeks.
I had a grill back there. The grill was covered in green. It was nuts. It was literally everything was covered in green. And I've told this story before when we talked about the episode where we talked about injuries on the job.
Yeah.
We had masks on the whole time with respirators and everything to stay safe with the vapor, but I forgot something in the room and went back in for 5 seconds. Figured I don't need the mask. I'll just hold my breath, get in, get what I need, get out. And of course, it wasn't where I remembered I left it. So I took one gulp of air, leave the room. After my daughter's born, I'm coughing up green. Ended up having to go to the hospital and get steroids and this and that to pump it all out because I actually had paint in my lungs.
I'm pretty sure F5 was the only game I hadn't injured myself on.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Kind of proud of that.
There's still the takedown.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen, Christina. I just won't piss off Izzy and she won't throw stuff at me.
Don't be all negative, Christina. But yeah, those corn stalks were a monstrous undertaking. And when we were making them, I'm pretty sure every single member of the team wanted to kill me.
I'm not going to comment on that.
But as I forget who, I think it was Andrew downstairs that said while we were taking them all down, if you didn't have the cornstalks in the game's a very different atmosphere. Just having that little bit of billowing in the wind of the leaves and the look when you walk through the door, that's part of the game's charm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of claustrophobia there too, because they come up to, I'm like 6 feet, so those are like my height,
right,
thereabouts. So you can't really see what's past them. So there's like this enclosed atmosphere of the game, plus the wind, and then the fact that it's dark.
Yep.
It's just lots of anxiety with the cornstalks. It's not so much there without them, so you don't get the that kind of fear factor, I guess.
Right. You just have an open field. It'd be kind of
boring.
We essentially made it almost like a maze, so that was always kind of cool, and enjoyable for players as they went through it. At least we hope. And here's a shot of what they had looked like. Pretty much finished up. We have there's photos if you go through our Facebook page from when we were building it and other stuff. We made over 1,000 cornstalks. I want to say there was like 1,400 when we were done, so that we had like overages for replacements.
There was 1,400. I think we used around like 500 or 600 in the game itself initially, and then we went through most of them over the course of 2 years because we didn't have any backups.
Right.
We didn't have any more backups. So once we were out, it was like, I mean, no one else who was here from when we built it was still here by that point. But I was like, I'm not making more cornstalks. I'm still like another 3 years out from wanting to do that again.
And there's still a couple hundred that are in good shape.
Yeah, most of them are surprisingly in good shape.
Yep.
So.
This game, had a lot of framing work and stuff like that was done. And like always, we brought Dan Wills in, who does all the carpentry work with us on everything. He's not going to be here over the next 2 weeks for Freak Show because his family actually goes away middle of July. But he did already frame out half of Freak Show.
Yeah.
With us when including the trailers with our floating floors. So he already did his part. But one of the things that got built in there was, I guess, a mix of everybody kind of throwing their words and and what to do was the Scarecrow.
Yeah.
The Scarecrow, I think, was the bane of almost all of our existence when it came. There's always something in every game that afterwards it's like the players get a kick out of it, but you wish you didn't do it. And the Scarecrow was the thing in F5.
Well, I mean, when we first designed it, you put like a 90-pound sandbag in there, and the Scarecrow was mounted to a broomstick of all things. So like, day 2, I think the broomstick snapped.
Yep.
So
creating a jousting stick.
We got rid of the sandbag, and then the issue was initially to none of the game masters, myself included, wanted to carry that thing through the game.
Yep.
Because there was no.
You had to reset it.
You couldn't get it from where it started to where it ends up in the game, and vice versa, without actually playing the game. So we cut in a little gate that we hid that allowed us to get back and forth through the game without having to play it.
A little context is basically the Scarecrow. We made like a crucifixion pole for all intents and purpose. Strapped the Scarecrow dummy to it. And the Scarecrow is just kind of left standing as if he was thrown by a previous storm in another area of the game. You take him, and your team has to carry him to the midpoint of the game, where you have the Scarecrow post that's pictured over here. Of course, in the finished version, it's surrounded by cornstalks and everything's painted and blah blah blah. This was when we were actually building it. But you stick the pole in the box, and that's where the Scarecrow was originally mounted from, and that opens the gate for you to move through. How many times people tried to crowd surf that Scarecrow? How many times people literally sexually abused that Scarecrow?
He was fondled quite a bit. He had like a plaid shirt on and like these overalls. People would take the shirt off, people would take the overalls off. The Scarecrow would be on one half of the game, the clothing would be on the other half of the game. He took a lot of abuse. A lot of abuse.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's all over.
Yeah. Abuse to degrees that I've never seen before.
And just talk about the Scarecrow a little bit more. I think I configured 4 or 5 different ways to ensure that the clothes would not come off that scarecrow or come off the post. And every time, someone figured out a way to take the scarecrow off the post and take his clothes off.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
finally got the last shot. Like the last 4 months have been. I think I finally figured out my knot tying to make that work.
Just as the game closed.
And I finally figured it out. 2 years later, I figured out the solution for it.
But, you know, at least we figured it out. Let's see, what do we have? Next up is the, to discuss is the actual lookout tower. So, you know, my thought with this was, like, anytime I ever went to, like, a corn maze, there was always usually that, like, climb up lookout tower where you could get above everything and get your field of view and then kind of route your path and move on. So that was the intention with this thing. But the first couple times we made it, although this is supposed to be an obstacle course, it didn't have the railings. And then it didn't have the railings high enough. And like it kept being the situation of like, who's gonna die? Who's gonna die? And then someone almost did. I actually wish we would have pulled that footage. This would have been a great time to show it when the person totally just did like the fall backwards.
That birthday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was, I guess, last fall. There was like a 14-year-old girl's birthday party, and all of her friends were in the game to like surprise her. And she comes climbing up the top. All of her friends yell "surprise!" They're kind of down at the far right corner of the photograph, and they all yell "surprise!" and she goes "ah!" and then she just fell from the top. And,
It was bad.
It was pretty terrifying. I was doing something in Freak Show, I think, and then I heard it, and then he came in and was like, "This girl fell from the top."
No, I wasn't there.
Someone was.
I think Thaddeus might have been there.
Somebody
but
was
yeah,
there.
it wasn't
but
me.
I wasn't there to see if they were all right. So
That was bad though. And actually, we're waiting to find out because we were just before we went live. You were dismantling that thing. We're waiting to see just how much of like people's personal belongings are between the wall and the steps on the other side.
I do know that there's at least one pair of sunglasses back there, maybe. So, lady who lost them, if you're watching, we're probably gonna find them today. So,
Didn't someone lose a watch in there?
someone lost like this silver medallion necklace that was apparently insured for a lot of money.
Right.
It's probably in the storm cellar, but I say we just cash it in and retire if we find it.
I'm game. Yeah, I mean, this is oddly enough a very clean version of what the room is starting to look like at the moment, but it's a photo of literally just the framing for what the cornstalks got attached to, minus the cornstalks, of course. And there's no well there yet. There's no... that was like bare bones. We had just laid the grass down and whatnot. But yeah, that was kind of our little mini maze, which oddly enough worked. The only thing we hadn't factored when we first opened was we needed a maintenance gate.
Yeah.
Because at first we had to go through the course every time we reset.
Yeah, so it's kind of at the bottom corner of the photograph against the wall in front of the boxes. We cut a little like hidden gate there, and that allowed us to get through the game with a little bit more ease.
Yeah, no, that worked out pretty well. Hey, Andrew. Everyone, Andrew, the world.
Welcome, world.
It's a beautiful place.
No, that's his face.
What?
Someone in the chat room, they asked if that was his face.
Can they see me?
Yeah.
I'm so honored.
Anyway.
Now you're just making it awkward. Go away.
Um,
Love you.
So yeah, actually in this photo that's up, you can see that there, the lookout towers, platform's not exactly like up against the wall. There is a gap, and that was intentional. We wanted to keep it freestanding so that it's still qualified as like theater set piece as opposed to permanent structure. Mm-hmm. So all those little fun ways to get some stuff done. But any particular crazy memories, Mike, from F5 that you want to share?
I have a couple. When we first opened the game, we were heavily advertising it as like this obstacle course. So for like the first 3 months, all we were getting were like bro dudes and their girlfriends. Like it was a lot of like meatheads, like athletic, like really athletic people who just like thought that they were going to be doing like this crazy CrossFit competition kind of thing, and it wasn't that.
It was advertised that way to a slight degree, but yeah, it wasn't meant to stay that way.
We eventually changed the verbiage that it wasn't an obstacle course that it wasn't an obstacle course. It wasn't a physical. The physicality came second to everything else, and by changing that, the clientele changed a little bit, probably for the better. Because for the first 3 months, it was a lot of people breaking stuff. The Scarecrow broke. The chains got ripped off the wall a handful of times.
Yeah.
The cabinet that the original cabinet that we had in the barn kept breaking. We got a very different clientele when we first opened. And by changing some of the words around how we described the game, it became a little bit more kid-friendly. All of a sudden, kids started showing up.
Instead of the first obstacle course escape room, it became the first escape room obstacle course hybrid.
Yeah.
Just literally flipping the words.
It changed everything.
I
do remember the first game that we had.
And people were afraid to play at first. Because, like, the generic crowd was like, we probably can't do it.
Yeah, there was that kind of, like, hesitancy that people had about the physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then everyone else kind of warmed up to it. But I do remember the first game that we had because we were advertising like 25-mile-per-hour winds, which sounds fast, but in reality is like a breeze.
Right. This is 25-mile-an-hour winds.
Basically. And
but it blows the leaves on the cornstalks.
Yeah.
It gave the effect. There were points you could stand and feel a good hit of wind.
But we had like these 13-year-old girls play like the first game, and Mom's sitting in the couch in the lobby, and as soon as they walk in, from the other side of the wall, you just heard this one girl go, 25-mile-per-hour winds my ass! And the mom just gives me the most panicked look, like, I'm like, kids. And they were just cursing the entire game. And Mom was like, oh my god, my kids are so foul-mouthed.
Yep.
But, yeah, they seem to enjoy it. But,
my favorite forever is always, were you here the night where the guy Superman dived into the military crawl from the barn?
That was the Pages, wasn't it?
No.
No?
No, that was definitely not the Pages. This was a group of, like, total bro dudes.
I thought the Page, he fell. And he fell into the military.
No, I'm talking full out Superman dive.
Oh. No, I wasn't.
So this was one of the most action-packed adventure games I had ever seen. So, group comes in. They are fully in gym gear. Like, they're in, like, compression pants and, like, tight shirt. Like, each one. What was really funny, too, is they all had a superhero shirt. So, like, one dude had the Superman S, another had the big bat symbol, another, like, and so, like, every one of them had a different, they were Marvel and DC crossover, but, what are you going to do? So, I think they had, like, maybe 15 minutes left in the game. They get into the locker, they open up the locker, and in the locker is a crank for the well that's pictured, like, right in the middle of the screen of the photo we have up. You have to go back down through the military crawl, which is right over there. It's to the far corner of the screen, and the barn is opposite that. So the barn is 4 feet off the ground? Thereabouts. So, but it's also probably about 10 feet to 12 feet from the military crawl. So, guy takes the crank out of the locker, tosses it to the other guy, and he just dives. Right from that spot. And I think he was expecting to, like, land it and go, and it was just...
Too bad that it's hardwood floor underneath the fake grass. It's not like padding.
The thud. And he's like, I'm okay! And goes and crawls through the rest of the thing. They won. I come in at the end. They, like, powered through the last 15 minutes of the game. I come in. That guy rolls up his compression pants. He's just bleeding down his shins. Like, a lot of blood. He scraped his legs so bad and ripped open his kneecaps. And I'm like, dude, are you alright? And he just goes, that was fucking awesome!
That's why I'm glad that we changed the verbiage and kids started coming. I mean, in all honesty, there was something a little bit more sincere about kids beating that game.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it was the more kid-friendly game, but there was no ego when kids beat the game. There was, like, this sincere sense of fun that they were having.
Fun adventure,
whereas, you know, Bro Dudes who played the game would just, like, have bragging rights that they beat an escape room with, like, a 70% success rate.
Yeah.
You know, so,
Yeah.
I mean...
And how many of them were all about their time?
Yeah, it
You
was
know,
all about,
like-
like, speed and whatnot. Not really... It wasn't about playing the game. It was just about beating the game as quickly as possible.
Right.
It's like inhaling your food rather than eating your food. You're not
Right.
tasting it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, no, there was no story elements. There was no, nobody was actually catching anything. They were flying through that as fast as they could, where, like, normal families now walk through the farm.
Yeah.
They were, like, literally crisp run. Like, everything they did. It was a little over the top. And if the game was about 5,000 square feet larger than it was, maybe. But, the obstacles are with 1,000 square foot room, they're too close together. Actually, I think F5 is 1,200. But either way, it's not, it just wasn't doable. Like, the way they were playing it was they were playing it like a Spartan race.
Yeah, and it's not a Spartan race.
It's the most physical escape room I've ever seen. And
Yeah.
I've had people who've played worldwide back that up. F5 was the most physical escape room
Yeah.
ever made.
But it's not like this death race kind of thing.
Right.
Where it's like, you gotta, like, crawl under barbed wire and, like, you'll dehydrate and die in the game. It's just, it's like I've compared it more recently to, like, a jungle gym.
Yeah.
There's that,
Yeah.
the physical elements that you would normally encounter in a jungle gym.
Which for
Um,
kids is extremely challenging.
Yeah,
So-
exactly. But, like, it's fun if you describe it as a jungle gym and not, like, you're gonna die kind of thing.
Go, go, go! Like, fill out military
No,
operation.
'cause my friend Chris just did some video coverage for that death race up in Vermont, where like it's like 72-hour non-stop in a mountain, and people are getting like they're collapsing due to like heat exhaustion, and the elements are just beating them down. But it's not that. It's just all this game is missing is a swing and a slide. Could have put monkey bars in there. That would have been cool. But
See, the only thing was explaining why these obstacles were in the farm in
Yeah.
the first place. Everything in the game actually kind of makes sense.
yeah, everything is structured to be a farm that got hit by a tornado at
Right.
one point.
Right.
So-
So your obstructions, your obstacles, they kind of work. Like the military crawl is supposed to be a fence that came down,
Yeah.
and you're crawling underneath.
Oh, we had the weird fence slat puzzle. The
Yeah.
fence slat maze. That was
Yeah.
fun.
That was fun, but too many people were getting hurt.
We had this group from Staten Island with two very pregnant women playing the game in heels, like 6-inch heels.
We created this like multiple crisscross of beams that they would have to climb through and around, and
And like these,
I loved it. But
these pregnant women came into the game with like their big Guido husbands, and they get to that point in the game. I went in and I'm like, you don't need to do this. I can get you around the game. He's like, no, I'm gonna go do it. Like this total Fran Drescher voice, and she just fucking died. She's like she was due the week after she played the game, and like her husband's like sweating bullets, and he's like, no baby, don't do it, and she just fucking dove through it. And then her friend did it, and like the husband was just having like these heart attacks.
sorry, baby, I missed don't.
Yeah, pretty much, and
All I heard was do it, just do it.
And they both did it. I think they won, but they didn't go into the cellar. Oddly enough, but whatever. But
Was that part? Well, okay, yeah. Originally, when F5 premiered, once you got to the storm cellar, that was the end of the game. We felt it was a little anticlimactic, so we ended up adding the tunnel
Yeah, that was
out of the basement.
anticlimactic,
Storm
and just
cellar.
people got hurt.
No.
Drunk lady got
Couldn't get back out.
a drunk lady fell through the cellar door like a dead fish. She held her alcoholism pretty well during a corporate group.
Oh my god, I forgot about that till you just brought it up. This girl literally walks up to the storm cellar door, and she's vertical, and just almost ends up going like pencil dive sideways.
If anybody roughly my age,
And just,
if anyone like around like the age of 30 remembers the TV show All That, there was a skit called Repairman, where this guy would just fall through the ceiling, like just total dead fish fall through the ceiling, and then he'd springboard back up. That's what this woman looked like. Just, and she smacked her head open on the floor, and we had like it was just terrible.
There was blood. It was bad. It was really bad.
It was on a Monday when we were closed. It was a corporate group, so we did a special booking.
Yep.
So it was my day off, and I was only supposed to be there for 2 hours. I was there for 5.
And then she wanted to sue. But luckily we have a very good relationship with our neighbors, and that corporate group was at Horseshoe Tavern next door earlier in the right before they came to us. The bartender cut her off. That's how bad she was drinking next door already.
But the thing is that they could hold their alcohol very well because they didn't have any indication that they were drunk.
Right.
They were loud and rowdy, but that's just typical of corporate groups I've noticed. But unless they're all just secret alcoholics.
That was pretty much where the line in the sand came of like, if you're drunk, you are not going in, because like we would let buzzed people in, but it was like this girl was belligerently drunk, it turned out, to the point where they cut her off from alcohol inside. It was, but luckily that bartender was willing to go to speak on our behalf, and it got thrown out.
Yeah, I think he had the bar tab.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that worked out. Christina, can you get Samantha? F5, one of my greatest creations, conceptually. I was the one who wanted to do an obstacle course tornado game. I loved the movie Twister growing up. Mike, actually, the one thing we haven't talked about was the tornado itself.
there's not really a lot to talk about.
It's incredible visual effects work.
I just found templates on YouTube, like just digitally created tornadoes that in front of a green screen, and just looped it for about an hour and 7 minutes, and just found all the different layers on the background. The original idea
Was the miniature.
Yeah, that Urbano and I had discussed. One of our old tech guys, we were gonna build like a full-scale
Motorized miniature.
full-scale miniature that was maybe like 7 feet long with like a tornado that would be motorized. It would spin and come forward over the course of an hour. And we ended
Actually,
up-
not to make Samantha run right back down the steps, but Sam, right outside the initial door to F5, there is a shelf. On that shelf is a tornado on a little motorized platform. Can you grab it?
Sure.
We
Yes.
have it.
So yeah, you'll see it in a few seconds. But it was designed to. It spun, and then we were going to have it come forward slowly on like a mechanized slider, and we just couldn't get it to spin fast enough to look convincing. And there was also some difficulty in just trying to figure out how to make it move forward over the time span of an hour. So we scrapped it, and I just found a digital effect that still took me like a week to.
What was really
Put
cool
together.
about the visual was that, this would start off all the way in the distance, and the screen that kind of does give it a decent shot, but the tornado is about 18 feet tall, the projection, so it takes up like an entire wall inside the game. Mike's got the miniature tornado right
Yeah,
there,
so it's supposed to spin, but it's a little
lopsided.
The other trouble is that every time it would spin, this would just shift that way. It would just it's just like this really like lopsided floppy thing that didn't really work the way we wanted it. It looks cool from like a prop standpoint, but physically it just in game it didn't work. But it's like cotton and like a styrofoam centerpiece.
Mike made it just like his penis, soft and always leaning left.
Anthony has very particular insecurities about himself that he likes to project on people. If you haven't guessed that already. Yeah, it just kept, it would do this
Wiggle
basically
wobble,
every time
yeah.
we spun it. So
Yep.
we decided not to use it. But it's a cool prop.
It was a very cool prop. I always love to talk about it. The tornado wowed a lot of people. My favorite was always because, like, there's a point where the tornado would come across the screen and then come back but move, like, closer to center. And when it would do that, that's when it would really start filling the wall and get closer and closer.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people would make it to the barn, close the barn doors,
And then they'd open
and
it.
then they'd open it like 20 minutes later and be like, "Oh shit!" You know?
My favorite was always forgetting to turn on the thunder speaker that
So it would
played all the
just
sound
crash.
effects. So then, 30 minutes into the game, I would turn it back on, and then all of a sudden they get hit with like this loud thunderclap, and it would scare the shit out of everybody.
We found an incredible speaker company with the bass level that like really rocked the house, and this thing, I don't know how many times we would have people that would be in the lobby and think there was a real storm.
Yeah, it was very
They'd
convincing.
be like, "Is that outside?" Like it's sunny. What the hell? So it was pretty cool, and even people walking down the street sometimes would hear the thunder,
Yeah.
and it would freak them out, and they would come in. So yeah, F5, you
had a good run.
had a good run. It's not to say we won't ever see you again, but for now you're locked in the Trapdoor Vault, and hopefully we'll see you somewhere else in another state or something down the line. But you made us a lot of money, so thank you, F5. Thank you. Onwards! And we hope you'll join us next time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't below. Like, comment, subscribe. And